Does Chris Grier have a big move up his sleeve after the NFL draft? Well, there are some rumors that Grier might ultimately sign one of the top free agents still available following the NFL draft next weekend. We'll talk about who that may be and what positions Miami could be targeting here in just a second. But I do want to let you guys know that we have a special event later today. Now, if you're watching this on Thursday morning, you'll be able to watch. If you're not, well, you might have missed it, which is why you need to be subscribed and have your notifications turned on. But we are doing a live 3-round mock draft on Chat Sports. All Chat Sports teams are going live, and we're doing a mock draft between our channels. Join us at 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, as we will be ready to make picks at 13, 48, and 98. You'll see my thought process and how the board falls for everybody else. All right, let's get back to Grier on free agency, because we have talked about, in the Chris Grier press conference on Tuesday has been well documented. Well, during that press conference, he said that we've been in touch with a number of players that we're still tracking when referring to free agency and when asked if they're going to sign a free agent after the NFL draft. Well, I do think Miami is clearly going to sign someone. There is still holes on this roster, and all of them cannot be addressed by the NFL draft, even if they hit on every pick. And Chris Grier actually really likes adding to the Dolphins roster after the conclusion of the draft. He likes going into the draft not having too many spots locked in, let's say, because he doesn't want to be forced to be taking position, and he wants to go BPA at multiple different positions. Like, for example, last season, if you looked at the Dolphins free agent signings after the draft, there was some notable ones. We all talked about wide receiver 3 being a major position last year during the draft. Well, he signed Odell Beckham Jr. a week after on May 8th. Did it work out? No, but that's how he wanted to address the position. Same thing with safety position number 3. They had Poyer and Holland, but they didn't have a third guy, Marcus May, on June 10th. They had a big hole in the defensive line. The best signing they arguably made in free agency last year, Calais Campbell, on June 18th. And then obviously they signed Emmanuel Ogbah on July 23rd. That was because Shaq Barrett retired before the training camp portion began. But another impact player that Miami ultimately signed late after the draft. So I think they will go and do that. And with the team needs being so apparent, I believe Miami will go out and target some guys in these positions. Defensive line and cornerback are the top 2 needs. Zach Seal and Benito Jones are the only 2 players on the depth chart. Jalen Ramsey likely going to be traded, which means what are they going to do? Draft pick and Cam Smith, or are they going to go draft pick and a free agent signing alongside Kader Kohu? We'll see. Left guard and safety are the next 2 biggest positions of need for the Dolphins. And I do think Chris Grier will ultimately go best player available at 13 and pick 48. Maybe later in the draft they start pigeonholing themselves into some positions they'd like to go after, whether it be running back or wide receiver or more safety depth. But at 13 and 48, if they just want to take the best player available at left guard, corner, safety, knowing that they can spend a little bit in free agency after the fact, I think that's something that Miami ultimately could go and do. So adding veterans on the cheap is a must if the Dolphins want to be competitive next season. So let me know, who is going to be a free agent after the NFL draft that you want to sign? There are still some good players out there at corner, at offensive line, at safety, not much at defensive line. But yeah, if you want to sign someone, let me know who it is down in the comment section. It is important to note that entering the NFL draft, Miami has $16.6 million in cap space that can be expanded on. It could also be shrunken based off if the Dolphins make a trade involving Tyreek Hill or Jalen Ramsey. But right now, they do have enough money to sign a relatively solid free agent after the draft and their entire draft class and still be fine in the cap number. We're going to start with the cornerback position because that is arguably the most important one at this point. There are 6 guys out there that I think I would not be that upset with being CB2. Stephon Gilmore, Rasul Douglas, Asante Samuel Jr. are my top 3. But if they brought Kendall Fuller back on a veteran minimum deal, I would be fine bringing him back. We know the Dolphins like his personality. He just couldn't stay on the field last year, but was solid in the 11 games he played. If you slot in one of these 6 free agents to the CB2 position on the depth chart and then replace Jalen Ramsey with either Jahdae Barron or Will Johnson in the first round, I will feel a little bit better about the cornerback depth chart entering the season. Now, if these are no Ramsey and it's two rookies or a rookie and Cam Smith, that's a different story. But you grab a Gilmore, you grab a Asante Samuel Jr., I could be in on that. And I will say this. I don't think drafting a corner at 13 would make me want to not sign one of these top corners. To me, you have to pair up the rookie you draft, whether it's at 48 or 13. It's likely going to be at one of those two spots with the cornerback position with a veteran. The top guy is Asante Samuel Jr., in my opinion. We've gone over his statistics in the past, 50 games. He just finished his rookie contract of 4 years. He's been solid in coverage. He's a little bit undersized at 5'10", but he plays well in man-to-man schemes. He's physical. He's ready to go. He's my top guy, even though there's the injury concern. Then that's why he's still out there. Now, there has been rumors of a handshake deal between him and the Minnesota Vikings following the NFL draft. We'll see if that ultimately is true or not. But if Miami wants to create the best cornerback room they possibly can for the 2025 season, drafting one at 13, whether it's Will Johnson or Jahdae Barron, and then signing Asante Samuel Jr. or Stephon Gilmore after the draft is probably the best possible outcome. Today's show is sponsored by Mando. The weather is warming up. I'm most looking forward to golfing with the homies and playing some basketball. And I'm looking forward to it even more because I've started using Mando whole body deodorant because unlike some other brands I've tried, it can actually handle anything. Clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. 12 hours after a shower, the average man's Grundle odor level was a 5 out of 10. With Mando, the average Grundle odor level is a 0 out of 10. The Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers as well. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, plus it has free shipping. And my personal favorite item they have is the deodorant wipes because it's so easy to take on the go, whether you're out running errands, whether you're traveling via train, bus, plane, it don't matter. Anytime I want to get a quick freshen up, the deodorant wipes is my go-to move. And as a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code CHAT. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you use code CHAT at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. All right, let's transition over to the offensive line now because I actually do see it more likely that Miami signs an offensive lineman more than any other position following the draft in NFL free agency. And I know that's kind of crazy to say that, but I'll explain why in just a second. First of all, the top 5 offensive linemen available for Miami, in my opinion, number 1 is Brandon Scherff. I would put Will Hernandez at number 2, Dalton Risner at 3, with veteran Shaq Mason and Daniel Brunskill filling out my top 5 list at number 4 and 5. The offensive line for Miami is borderline set. They just need to find a left guard. You sign James Daniels to a 3-year deal at the right guard spot. Austin Jackson and Aaron Brewer return. With Teron Armstead retiring, Patrick Paul is thrusted into that starting spot. Larry Borum is your swing tackle, and you also have depth on the interior with Liam Eichenberg, Andrew Meyer. It will be a competition to see who ends up being the starting left guard. But the reason why I think it's likely that Miami signs an offensive lineman more than any other position is because when you look at the draft strategy, most people believe, including myself, Dolphins are going to go with a defensive lineman or a DB with the 13th pick, and then whatever one they do not draft at 13 will likely be the 48th pick, a corner or a defensive lineman. So that leaves offensive lineman in round 3. Well, that's no guaranteed starter. So if you don't feel confident about Eichenberg, which you shouldn't, and he better not be starting, or a 3rd-round pick starting right away, then it would make sense to go out and sign a veteran, one of those 5 guys we just mentioned. And if the Dolphins do make a signing after the draft, we will have you covered with a video. We're trying to get to 69,000 subscribers, very nice, before the NFL draft. Hit that sub button and join us today if you want to be covered on everything Miami Dolphins. I've talked about him for a while now, but Brandon Scherff is clearly the guy that I want the most for the Dolphins before free agency, after free agency, and before and after the NFL draft. It doesn't matter. I'm a big fan of Brandon Scherff. He is just such a veteran presence that would be very helpful. And to me, when you talk about the additions to the Dolphins offensive line that you'd like to see, to me, with Patrick Paul at left tackle, you want someone that's a veteran to stabilize the left side of that offensive line. And with Paul being a first-year starter, it makes sense to go with Brandon Scherff, who has not missed a game in 3 seasons, is one of the best interior offensive linemen in terms of his pass blocking. I think Will Hernandez is a good fit as well, but has injury concerns with him historically. But Scherff would be a home run addition to this offensive line and make me feel like there is a legit improvement to this group from last season to this year. All right, let's go over to a different position here now, and that's the safety room, where you've seen additions. You've seen them sign Ifeatu Melifonwu, Ashton Davis. They brought back Elijah Campbell. Patrick Morris enters his second season with the team as a 6th-round pick last year. Now, I think they should add one, whether it be in the draft or free agency. But maybe this is not going to be a position the Dolphins look at in free agency after the draft. Because in that press conference on Tuesday, GM Chris Grier said the team feels it has 2 starters in the safety room already, with Melifonwu, Davis, and Elijah Campbell, and Patrick McMorris. So I like the confidence they're showing in those 4 guys, and I'd like to see an open battle. But the truth is, I think I would also like to draft one in the 4th round, maybe the 3rd round, or sign one in NFL free agency. And there's some 4 veterans out there that would be pretty good additions. I would rank it lower than offensive line and corner in terms of what I would want. But Justin Simmons, Julian Blackmon, Marcus Williams, and Jordan Whitehead, you get one of those 4 veterans in this room, that just ends it. And you have a good safety room with one of these 4, Melifonwu, Davis, McMorris, and Campbell. I would feel pretty good about those being the 5 guys. Because I'm not the most confident about the safety room that Miami currently has. I think that's the reason why you've seen some mock drafts out there have the Dolphins going with Nick Emenwari or a Malachi Starks in the 1st round of the draft. I would be fine going with a 3rd round guy if it's Andrew Makuba, Jonas Sanker, Billy Bowman. But I don't think it's the most likely that they go with one of the 2 picks in the top 50 with a safety slot. I think it's more likely going to be a mid-round pick on day 3 or late day 2 or a free agent signing. Well, let me know your thoughts. Should the Dolphins sign a safety in NFL free agency following the NFL draft? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Well, if the Dolphins did sign one, my personal favorite would be Julian Blackmon, who, ironically enough, I said would be one of the top targets for me going into free agency. In my perfect free agency plan, Miami signed Julian Blackmon, James Daniels. I had Carson Wentz. They obviously went with Zach Wilson. And then Will Fries. Now, obviously, Fries got a big deal with the Vikings in free agency that Miami was never going to match, but they signed James Daniels, and they still can go out and get Julian Blackmon. To me, that would be a really good addition. He's a good cover safety, despite what the QB rating says. I think he's better than what the numbers show. I think he would be a really solid addition to this room. All right, final word on this topic on today's show. The Dolphins cannot trade Jalen Ramsey. I know it's going to be a major topic of discussion before the draft, after the draft, before June 1st if they want to sign a free agent after the draft. Why? Well, his cap hit right now is currently $16.6 million. If you trade Jalen Ramsey before June 1st, it rises to 25, which means he now has an upped $9 to $10 million cap hit. And if you have $16.6 million in space, well, now you only have 6.6. But you have to sign your draft class. That basically takes you down to nothing. So if you are going to sign a free agent after the draft, you will have to trade Jalen Ramsey to get a pick next year and have that trade not be finalized until after June 1st. So you actually save $5 million in cap space this season, which could allow you to make some moves in free agency after the draft. And as I say, we'll make you and have you covered on every single move Miami makes during the draft, after the draft. Also, make sure you subscribe and join us for that live mock draft later today. It's going to be a ton of fun if you're watching this before we go live on Thursday afternoon.